Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Chris Mohip, Superintendent of Proviso School District 209, and this is our first edition of Mondays with Mohip. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. I'm going to wait to see if people might join us in just a few minutes here. So if you're just joining, again, this is Mondays with Mohip. This is a segment that I'm going to start doing every week. It's an opportunity to just have a informal conversation, hear about what's going on in the district, and then if you have questions, you're able to put them into the chat. I have Corey Hobbs here, one of our parent engagement specialists that's helping coordinate because I cannot read and talk to you at the same time, given this small space. And so I just want to be able to be responsive to the community. I know that from being here about 8 months, 9 months now, that there's sometimes an issue where parents and community members are asking questions and they're not always getting they're not getting responses. And that's something we're going to talk about in a little bit later. But this is just another opportunity for me to engage. And really, this is about helping you kind of engage and manage through school for your child. Like high school it's a challenge, and it's a bigger challenge if you're not getting the questions answered, if you're not getting the support from your school. It's not that we don't want to. Sometimes we're overwhelmed, or sometimes we miss things. So, we just want to make sure that we're being as responsive as we can to you all. So again, I'm just going to give it a few more minutes, wait for others to join. I see RH Leong is on, and Bonnie and Dee. Thank you guys for being here. Looking forward to hopefully answering your questions through, the first 5 to 10 minutes of what I'm going to talk through. And if not, absolutely, please ask that question. I'll be able to answer it. Maybe I won't, but I'll give you an honest answer. And if I can't, we'll follow up with you and follow up to everyone that maybe has a question that are similar to yours. See, board member Morris is here. Rolandra, thanks for being here. And so we're just going to give it a few minutes, and then we'll get started on this first of many Mondays with Mohip. So again, thanks for everyone that's joining. I see more people are coming on. But I want to go ahead and get started because I want to be respectful of everybody's time and make sure that I'm leaving enough time for questions at the end. The first thing I want to talk about is we're on day 3 with students, day 5 with teachers into this school year. Really excited about how this school year began, the excitement that the teachers came with on Teacher Institute Day, seeing the smiles in the hallway of the students. But let me tell you what we did from June through July and August to get us to the point where we are to have a successful launch. It was a challenge. We did a ton of things over the summer. I pushed my own administrative team about as hard as anyone can push to make sure that we had that experience that your children had. I'm hoping that when you ask your kids about the first day, I hope they told you that it was better. I hope they told you that it was exciting. I hope they told you that if they had a schedule issue, that we were able to get that fixed quickly. And I will say now that we're, on day 3, I'm seeing very few schedule issues. If your children are still having them, please let me know. Please let the principals know. We'll make sure to get that adjusted as quickly as we can. But I was really worried about scheduling for this first week as we started back, because I remember reading the stories. I remember I was at the State Board of Education at the time, hearing about some of the challenges that we had in one of our schools in particular. And so knowing that we've gone from students waiting weeks, hundreds of students waiting weeks to get a schedule, to on our first and second day having all of these issues, or most of these issues, taken care of, that warmed my heart, and it made me feel good about working myself and my closest teammates, honestly, to the bone, so that we can get to this point where kids had a successful start. And even before we got there, we had to make some really difficult choices on staffing and on programs, because we knew what we were operating under wasn't going to be successful for our students. I'm well aware of the challenges of this district. I understand that we're going to make progress and it's going to take some time, but we have to be understanding of where we are. And I do understand where we are, and that we have the ability to do something great over these next few years, and we're not going to waste that opportunity. And so for the next few years, you will get, as long as I'm here, you're going to see me pushing and pushing and pushing, because I need this school district to be the very best in the state. And I know we can get there. It's just going to take this type of work. So we made those hard decisions on staffing, but it led to different leaders. I think leaders that were really meant to be here at Proviso. We have Jeremy Christian at Proviso West that is doing a phenomenal job already, but it's not just him. He was able to bring in 2 assistant principals. And then we also were able to offer 4 deans. We were also able to offer 6 department chairs. I'm thankful to our Board of Education, because they allowed for that space to occur so that our students can get the support they need, so our teachers can get the support they need. And we did our best to find the very best in leadership for your children, for this community, and for our school district. So although it was tough in the beginning, I'm happy to report we are in a great place. As I'm walking through the schools, I'm seeing such better things happening. One of the biggest shifts that I'm seeing already, which blew my mind that it happened so quickly, was getting these cell phones out of the hands of children, and so they can actually engage. I was having a conversation with a teacher on, it was the first or second day, and she told me that she is now going to have to go back and redo her scope and sequence, because she realized in that first day, that first lesson that she did, she said that would normally take her 2 or 3 days. And she said 75 to 85% of the kids were done within that first period, because we were able to take the distractions out of the children's hands, out of our students' hands, out of your kids' hands, so they could actually focus on learning, focus on what's happening in the classroom. And I will tell you that I was nervous about this. I didn't know how our kids were going to respond, but I should have known better, because I've always been impressed by the students in this district. I've been impressed by the families in this district. When we ask them to do something, when we ask our children, we ask our families to support us, they always do, right? The vast majority always do. And that's exactly the type of community, that's the type of school district that we're building, not compliance driven, but understanding that this is better for you. And so we're going to put some rules in place and have some consequences. And we didn't want to take cell phones away from kids completely. Like, that's not reality. That's not life. When they graduate from here, they're going to go to college. They're going to go into the workforce, or wherever it is they may go. And they have to understand and they have to learn how to take this cell phone and set it aside so they can focus on what it is that they're doing. So we're helping them set aside right now. We have cell phone pouches, and they put them in those, they put their cell phones, we're calling them phone homes. And so they're putting them in their designated spot, and it's there for the period, and then they're able to retrieve those at the end of the day. Teachers are there, they're monitoring, making sure the correct phones are going with the correct students. So far, we haven't had any issues. We're hoping that continues for the rest of the year. But what has just blown me away is that we're teaching our children how to take something like a cell phone that can produce anxiety every time you hear that chirp, right? You want to check it. Teaching them how to set that aside, because when they go to college or they go into the workforce, they can't constantly they cannot be attached to their phones. And so by doing this, and I'm thankful for the team, Dr. Kermis, and her school improvement staff, who really came to the forefront of taking the work that was done. Remember, we started a cell phone task force policy led by L.T. Taylor and Mike Swanson. So we had parents, we had community members, we had students, we had teachers who came together and said, this is what we were looking for in a cell phone policy. And then Dr. Kermis was able to take this and really implement it well. So we have the phone homes in every single building, in all of our classrooms. Dr. Kermis was at Walmart until about 10 o'clock at night the day before school was starting, because we wanted to have that in the classrooms every single day so we could start from day one. And so extremely thankful to her, to our facilities team that worked extra hours. We had maintenance crews beyond midnight at some of our buildings. We had a team come in at 4 a.m. because we knew how important it was from day one to set the tone that we were not accepting cell phones in classrooms anymore. So far, day 3, knock on wood, it's been a great rollout. It's been a great success. And we just, we're excited because now we can really get to some other things. And I want to talk about a few of the other things, a few of the other initiatives that we're really rolling out this summer. It's 2 things I really want to talk about. One is the gradual release of responsibility. It's an instructional framework that we built by our teachers in alignment with best practices and our MTSS structure. And so I'm naming those two things because those are the two things we are going to go deep in this year. But we would not find the success that I know that we will be able to find if we couldn't get the cell phones out of our children's hands. But now that we've taken these cell phones away from our kids, we have to replace it with engagement, right? And that's where the gradual release of responsibility is going to come in. The gradual release of responsibility, it's an instructional framework. It's a way of teaching that's been around for over 30 years. It's proven to work. I've used it in other spaces and other places. And essentially what it does, it asks our teachers to stop talking so much so students can learn more, right? And it's about shifting that cognitive load of learning off the teacher and placing that onto the student. So if you think about it, you hear when we're talking about the gradual release responsibility, oftentimes, if you've heard this before, you heard people talk about the I do, we do, you do. And that's essentially what it is. We're going to take the year, so you're not going to see this immediately. We're going to go very slow with our staff. But by the end of the year, the expectation is all of our teachers are teaching in this manner. And it's, having a learning objective so students know right away, here, this is what I'm supposed to learn. This is how I show mastery. And this is why it's important for me to know it. And then we'll move on to a model or a focus lesson where kids will be able to see specifically from an expert, which would be the teacher in this case, on how to do something, right? So we're going to break down standards to teach a small skill. So every day we're scaffolding those skills so that students can become successful on that standard and really build confidence as well as they're going through this. But getting the chance to see it and then moving into collaborative groups, right? So working with other peers, working with their friends to talk through things, right? And so the important part of this is that's going to be the majority of our class. The first 10 to 12 minutes that you're doing your learning objective and your modeling or your focus lesson, but then you're shifting that cognitive load to students. And this is where we'll train our teachers and update their skills around this, because what we want our teachers to do is not give them answers. There's this learned helplessness that I'm seeing in our schools. I saw it last year where the students relied on the teacher to answer all of the questions. When we do the model correctly, there's an example of what the lesson should look like. There's anchor charts, there's learning objectives. They're all the tools that students should have in that classroom, so they should be able to start answering their own questions. We want some struggle, right? We want that productive struggle to happen in the classroom. If they do get stuck, they're working in groups, so they should be able to talk to their friends or their group mates to help them. And then as a last resort, then they're working with the teacher. Now, the teacher during this time isn't just kicking their feet up and watching, right? They're going from group to group and they're helping those students. They're not giving students answers, but they're trying to help understand where their misconceptions are, where their errors in the process is, and helping guide them back without giving them those answers. Remember, we want to continue that productive struggle when we're moving away from this learned helplessness. And so that's going to take some time. And we understand this is going to be hard for some of our staff. It's going to be hard for all of our staff. It's also going to be a change for our students. You may hear differently from your kids as well about how school might feel different, or maybe it's louder in the classrooms. But, I've never been in a building where it's not loud, right? Now you just have to listen to those sounds. We want to hear talking. We want to hear laughter. We want to hear students engaging. And we also understand students may be off task like anyone would be on working on a project for 30 minutes. But we then bring them back, right? And that's the role of the teacher, to bring them back, to keep them engaged in the work that they're doing. And honestly, just make it a little more fun for kids. From collaborative learning, we go to independent learning, and then we want to wrap each lesson with some type of daily formative assessment. We have that learning objective at the beginning of the class. Now, at the end of the class, we want to measure, right? How successful was the teaching, right? If this is what the teacher set out to teach, we need to know how many students learned specifically what it was that we were trying to teach that day, right? So the formative assessment isn't going to be, did you enjoy class? Is, if the skill was summarizing, we're gonna measure to see if you actually know how to summarize, or whatever the skill for that day is. It'll also mirror the types of, possibly, right, multiple choice questions that you might see on the ACT, right? So I'm never the type of person that wants to teach to the test, but I want to make sure that every day our students are being exposed to the rigor that they should be exposed to be successful on that ACT. And I fully understand right now that we have students that are below level. We are in single digits proficiency for reading, for math, and in some cases reading as well. So knowing that we're at that low level, we as educators need to understand how to break that standard down into those skills, understand the different progressions of a standard depending upon the grade level, but then also figure out where is it that we need to start and how do we scaffold skill on top of skill day in and day out, understanding when we're introducing a standard, when we're reinforcing a standard, and when that standard needs to be mastered. And that's the work we're doing. That's why it's so important that we were able to get department chairs this year. Because in the past, we didn't really have coaches that were supporting our teachers. Now we have department chairs for all of our core subject areas, and we're looking to bring on teacher leaders for some of those areas, PE, counseling, art, some of those smaller departments. We want to be able to have somebody that we can go to help and support in some way. Teacher leaders would be a little bit different than department chairs. They won't go as deep, but it would still be a touch point for us as we go on and start doing this work. The other thing I want to talk about, and I promise we'll get to questions. I'm sorry, this is a longer summary for this week. But the next thing I want to talk about is what we're calling our Student Success Teams, or MTSS. Now, in the past, you heard me talk about student academic success triads. I can't even remember now because I've been talking about this so much. But we're moving away from this notion of triads because, words matter. And as we talked about this and we really started developing it over the summer, we realized that MTSS cannot be in the hands of 3 people alone. When we're talking about the needs of our students, the needs of your child, it has to be a comprehensive approach, and it needs to happen throughout the school year, throughout the school day. It just can't happen once a month with 3 people that are talking about students or your child. It needs to be a team of people that are constantly looking at this data. So working with our department teams, working with our principals, working with our counselors and our social workers. This is why we created the position of that Dr. McIntosh exited East as an assistant principal and joined us in central office, and she's going to be the director of MTSS counselors and social workers, because I know that counselors and social workers are going to be a big part of this work, but they're not the only piece. And so as we roll this out, you'll see that we are constantly talking about student data and by student supports. It was one of the reasons that we started the BAG report last year, because I knew we were building this. The BAG report, if you remember, it's that weekly report that comes out every Friday. We put it in the hands of students, we print them out, put it in the hands of students, and we also email it to you. If you're not getting the BAG reports every Friday, please let me know so we can make sure that we have the correct email for you. But this BAG report tells you your students' behavior, their attendance, and the grades for every week. Now, we'll be able to take that information with our student success team, and we'll start looking at trends, right? Like which students are really struggling, which students are sort of struggling, which students are doing a great job. And then start creating interventions, because what we want and what I've seen is that as a district, we have been reactive to failures and not proactive. And so what we need to do, last year we had over, don't quote me on the numbers, but it was like something like over 6,000 failures. We only have 4,700 kids. And so what this tells me is that our students are failing more classes than they should be. And we need to understand why. But our response has been, well, we'll put them in credit recovery. What we haven't had, and I know I've seen it, right, in pockets, but I haven't seen a district-wide approach to say we are proactively checking on students, looking at some of these leading indicators that we know will eventually lead to students. So we talk about leading and lagging, right? So these leading indicators that are then going to show that student failure down the road. So I don't want to wait towards down the road, and nobody on my team wants to do that as well. So we want to proactively go and start working with our students, start working with our counselors, with our social workers, with our deans, with our community partners like PLCCA, like whoever we need to bring to the table, right? To help these children, to help our students be successful. And if we can't get who we need at the table, then we're going to go to the home, right? And so there is no excuse for knowing that a student's failing or struggling and not doing something for it. So we're committed to having those meetings. We're committed to going out into the community, and we're committed to showing up wherever we need to show up, because we will show up for these kids every single day. It's not just me when I say that. I feel confident the team that we have in central office and in our schools will show up for these kids and will do whatever it takes for them. And I'm not just talking about administrators. I'm seeing this in teachers, in our executive assistants, in our maintenance. I mean, anyone that gets a check from Proviso really truly cares about our students. And that's something that over the last 9 months, it's been so wonderful to see. This year, something new that we did and we're looking to expand on is study halls. And so I'm seeing a problem. We ask our students to, and now I'm talking about East and West, they only need 22 credits to graduate, right? And that's in line with the state laws. The struggle that I have with this is that we provide our students with 7 classes. We were making them take 7 classes, right? And remember, I just said we had over 6,000 failures last year. But we're having kids do 7 classes. They're struggling with those classes. But the students that aren't, they're getting to a point by the time they reach senior year, they only need 1 class. And so when we look at our attendance rates, there's no wonder why we're 76%. This was at West. 76% of students are chronically absent. A lot of kids didn't want to come to school because they didn't need to come to school because they only needed 1 class, but we still had to give them full schedules. Now, this is an issue that we're still trying to figure out. Believe me, we're looking at it. But one of the first things we need to do is figure out what was causing this problem. And we were overscheduling our kids. Our kids are already struggling with school, right? We have a high failure rate. Freshmen on track was about 55% district-wide. So the answer can't be, let's give them more classes. The answer needs to be, and this is what we're doing, is we're creating study halls, right? We're looking for ways to engage with students around a smaller caseload of classes so that we can then, during the school day, provide that support for them. And then as those freshmen are failing courses, we hope none of them do, but somebody might, we have an opportunity during that study hall to help them remediate that course, right? We could start doing credit recoveries during the day. We have the DREAM program, right? But we don't necessarily need to put them in DREAM. We could have them in that study hall working on this. The kids that are doing a great job, this is an opportunity to push forward or maybe just release some of the load of homework so they could focus on sports, because we want all our kids in sports or some type of activity, or we also know children are working after school. So giving them an opportunity to do some work, to stay ahead, to stay aligned with whatever expectations each of their teachers have is what we believe is going to be a better approach than 7 courses. And we're going to monitor this. We're going to see how our freshmen do. And if we're seeing a rise in freshmen on track, we could attribute it to this and a few other things that we're doing. We will look at, putting these study halls and following this freshman class all the way up through their senior year. Another thing I want to talk about, I know for those of you that started straight with me on this podcast here, is this challenge that I've seen where community members, stakeholders are reaching out, emailing us, calling us. Sometimes nobody answers the phone. Sometimes they leave a message and they don't get a response. Sometimes there's no opportunity to leave a message. They're emailing, not getting responses. So that doesn't work for me. That is not how we work with a community. That's not how we build trust in a community. That's not how we build relationships with the Proviso Township. So what we're doing is we're providing something, a new program that we're building right now. We're doing the implementation. We're hoping by the end of this month, we're able to launch it. And I've talked about this before. It was in the papers before. It's this program called Let's Talk. And so I've used Let's Talk in other roles that I've been in and the last time I was a superintendent. What I like about it is it allows me to hold my team accountable, right? So if you enter a question into Let's Talk, I'm able to track it. I'm able to see who received it. And then I set the parameter of how long you have to respond to that person. And I'm giving the staff 24 hours. They don't have to resolve the issue, but they need to at least make contact with the family or to the person asking the question so that we can make sure that people with questions are getting a response or getting in contact with us so we can hopefully resolve whatever issue that they may have. And so I will start getting updates if we go beyond the 24 hours so I can send reminders to my own staff to make sure that they're following up But what we're hoping for is we build a culture of responsiveness, a culture of care within Proviso, where when somebody has a question or somebody has a problem, we're answering it, right? That's basic common sense. It's what should always happen, but it's not happening here. And I know that this is a problem across our country. Otherwise, programs like Let's Talk would not be around. So I'm excited to launch that. I'm hoping that it's going to help you as you're managing your interactions and your time of being, collaborating with us as a school district. One other thing that Let's Talk will have, it's going to have a chatbot. So it's AI infused. You can ask the chatbot questions and it could answer it for you. Sometimes you don't have to wait for an answer. Maybe you want to know when's the next day off of school, or what's on the lunch menu, or what's this person's email address. Instead of going and calling and searching, just go to the chat box. If we can answer it there, we'll answer it. If we can't, we'll then escalate it to a live person, to somebody on my staff that will follow up with you within 24 hours. Another thing I want to talk about that's been, a bit of a struggle or a challenge here has just been registration. If you have not finished registration for your child, please do so. So there's a difference, right? You're enrolled and you're registered. You enroll as a freshman, right? Or as a new person into the district, you enroll. But then we still have some registration forms that you have to do each year. Now, we didn't stop students in the past. We haven't stopped students from going to classes, but we will be following up with you. So there are some things that we just need to get from families. We'll just be continuing that push. But thankfully, the majority of our kids have shown up. They showed up on time. They had schedules. The only students that really can't start and go to classes legally, and we do follow the law, are anyone that's new to the district and never enrolled here, or our incoming freshmen. And I want to talk a little bit about our incoming freshmen because I also want to change how we do things for them. And so if any of your families have experienced this, I'd love to hear from you. But what we want to do this coming year is be more proactive. And so this fall and into winter, we want to go to the schools or have the schools come to us, and we want to start registering and getting schedules in the hands of our kids ASAP. So we're looking at November and December doing this work. One, so we know who's coming to our district. Two, so we can make sure you have those schedules on the first day. It broke my heart to see freshmen come to school on their first day sitting in a cafeteria or an auditorium because we didn't have their schedules ready because we didn't know they were coming, right? And so I put myself in the shoes of that 14-year-old. You had to be so scared. You're coming to this ginormous school. Maybe you don't know many people or anybody. It's traumatizing, right? It's a fearful thing for some students. And then on top of that, not getting to go to classes with the rest of your friends, or it's just, we want to avoid that, right? We want to avoid that experience as best as we can. And so doing things like this I think is going to be more helpful. We're also looking for ways for our counselors to engage more with our students so they know more about our children, more about your children and our students. So we're looking at 4 times a year where we'll have prescribed times for your child to go and talk to their counselor, right? And check in with their counselor and make sure they're on track, or answer any questions, or let them know about the course book and help them start making these decisions. Hey, I'm thinking about this for my career. What would be a good course for me to go towards? And so when I was doing a lot of listening to our students last year, I had advisory councils at each school from our students. A lot of them said that they wish they had a little bit more time to talk with their counselors. So we're going to make sure that we do that. We're also going to have, nights specifically designed, freshman nights, sophomore nights, all the way up to senior, to help parents engage and understand the process of graduating, of going to college, of entering the workforce and into the military. So nobody gets to, March or April of the year they're graduating and not really knowing what to do. Making sure we have those FAFSA nights and all the things that, for as parents, listen, I got twins that are sophomore and a 12-year-old just starting 7th grade. And even though I'm an educator, some of this stuff is still difficult for me to grasp, right? And I don't always respond. I don't always read the emails. I'm probably a terrible connected parent. You guys are much better than me. But just making those spaces available to help parents, because I know if I'm having those questions and this is what I do for a living, I'm sure parents also have those questions as well. So I just want to make sure that we're being responsive and helping our families. Two more things, I promise, and then we'll get to questions. But two things that I'm excited to announce. So we are building a new strategic plan. We have, we've launched it this month, and in the coming weeks, we'll be reaching out to have meetings with families. So now I looked at possibly bringing in some consultants to help with the strategic plan, and there may be some opportunities for that to continue, but I wanted to hold on to the engagement side. And so instead of having maybe 5 or 6 events where we hear from stakeholders, we're going to have over 50 events where we're hearing from the community. And I'm not going to ask the community to just only come to me. We're going to go out into the community as well, right? We're going to go to the cities and the townships. We're going to go to the schools. And we'll also have virtual options for parents as well. And so I know if this is not on the website already, I'll make sure it gets there soon. But we have 6 opportunities for parents to engage in the first few weeks of September. So for families at Proviso West, we have September 3rd at 6 p.m. in person at the school, and on September 8th, a 5:30 virtual session. At Proviso East, we have September 2nd at 6 p.m. in school, and September 11th, a 5:30 virtual session. And then for PMSA, we have September 4th at 6 p.m. in person, and September 10th, we have the virtual option. So again, we'll put those dates back out. What I just want you to know is we're not just going to build a plan without listening to our community, right? And so this is why we're talking about over 50 events. I could sit down in a room right now and create a plan on how I think we should improve this school, right? But that's just what I think. What I need to know is what we all think. We're taxpayers. We're committed to this community. We have children in this community, and we all want to see Proviso be better. And so we need to make sure that we're listening to all voices. And then once we're able to build this plan, we will build out some virtual transparency, right? Public-facing transparency to show how well we are doing as a district. I imagine that the goals of the strategic plan would be built into my evaluation, because I know that I'm going to build it into my leaders' evaluation. Because if we say as a community that this is what we need to do to improve our district top to bottom, then we're going to do that, and we're going to hold all of ourselves accountable to ensure that it happens. Now, to help this even become even more clear, we are aligning our strategic plan to something called the 5 Essentials. Now, that may ring a bell to you because the 5 Essentials is a survey that we do each year annually, and it's part of our state report card. And so while some people maybe don't see the value in the 5 E's, they see a lot of value in the 5 E's, right? It talks about the 5 things that really matter: effective leadership, ambitious instruction, collaborative teachers, all of the things that we need to make sure are happening in this school. The research is clear. This, again, it's a survey that's been around for 30 years. I know CPS has done a lot with it. But the research is clear. If you are able to take a district from not well organized or not organized to organized or well organized, you are going to see significant increases in achievement and just operations of a district, right? So right now, our district is designated as not organized. We are not well organized. But we are going to do the work over the next 5 years, and I'm hoping it doesn't take that long, to become a well-organized school. So as we're listening to the community, we're also going to base our strategic plan approach in what we know is in best practices and what works. And the nice thing is we'll have this 5 Essentials survey that we can use and that we could administer every single year, which would be another way for us to hold ourselves accountable. Listen, anybody can go in and say, oh yeah, I did all these things, right? But for a strategic plan to be successful, you can't just measure actions, you have to measure impact, right? So I can do all of these things in a strategic plan, but if I'm not yielding the results that we expect to yield, if I'm not seeing the impact, if I'm not seeing increases in student achievement, then our strategic plan is not working. And so there's a saying that, you have the perfect system. The system you have is perfectly designed for the outcomes that you have, right? And that's where we are right now. The systems that we have designed here in Proviso are yielding single-digit proficiency scores. That should be enough for all of us to realize that we need to shift what we're doing. We need to build some new systems, some new plans, some new strategies. But we cannot, as a district, build that in isolation. We have to build that with our community. And so that is the work that for the next 6 months that we will be engaging in addition to the graduate release responsibility and the MTSS. So as other things come in, I'm going to say, I'm too tired. I don't have time for that, because the 3 things that we're focusing on right now are the 3 things that are going to make the most impact on our school this year and for the years to follow. And so that's the work that we're doing, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to that. And as new things come in, we're going to have to say no. And that's another reason I want to have that strategic plan, because it's a lot better to say no when I have a plan that the community has got behind and said, this is where we want to go in the next 5 years. And then we take that plan and we align it to our budget. So we make sure that we're prioritizing what our community says is the most important thing for our students, for our families, and for Proviso Township. So the last thing, and I'll close on this and take any questions that we may have, is just a reminder that on September 13th is the Bridging the Gap parade. And so in the past, I believe last year we had 1 float for the district. This year we're securing 4 floats, so each school will have its own float. And then our central office and Board of Education, we're going to have our own float. And so I'm really excited about that. I was joking around to say today, as the schools are going to be, they'll have their bands and I don't know, I'm just putting it out there. I don't know what's going to happen yet, but they might have their bands or their cheerleaders, sports teams, clubs. Like the central office will just be there shuffling our papers, because that's what we do, right? We just push papers here at the 5th floor. But we are really excited about this opportunity. Somebody like that. We're really excited about this opportunity to really engage in this event. And, for those of you that have been following over the summer, we really tried to engage with this community. We went door knocking a couple of times to remind people to register, but we consistently showed up at the community events. I'm a community person. I believe in the power of community. I believe that we cannot rebuild this district to what it should and could and will be without community. And we cannot expect the community to show up if we ourselves don't show up in the community. So we spent many nights, many weekends, many days there, and I'm appreciative to my team that showed up. I'm appreciative to the Board of Education members that consistently showed up. I'm appreciative to our mayors, our elected officials, our clergy, our seniors, everyone that kept coming out and encouraging us to continue to do this work. I promise you, we will continue to do this work. I don't know if my passion's coming through loud and clear here, but I really believe in this district. I really believe in our students, and I truly and genuinely believe that we could be outperforming districts in the next 5 to 7 years when we come together, we hold ourselves accountable, and we stay strong to the systems that we're going to build with this next 5-year strategic plan. And so with that, I know I spoke for a little bit longer than I expected to, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Again, I have Corey, one of our parent engagement specialists here, who was filtering through the comments, because I'm not able to read them, unfortunately, to see if there's any questions that have been filtered in. Corey, do we have any?
Yes, we do. We've got a few. We can start with, we're going to start with, just a moment. We have Ebony Gordon. She has a few questions. She's been really engaging. She's got a question about students with IEPs. She didn't tell us more yet, but she did want to know about tutoring opportunities for students for English and math.
That's a great question. I didn't talk anything about our students with IEPs or students that are learning a second language. Like everything that, well, not everything, but a lot of things here in the district, there is an opportunity for growth. There's an opportunity to improve, and special education is no different. What I found as I was coming in to this district is that we didn't have a district-wide approach. For special education, right? And I'll be honest with you, almost one of the first things I did, if you don't know, I used to work at the State Board of Education. My last job there, I was the Chief Education Officer for Illinois. One of the first calls I made was to the state because I was concerned about what I was seeing in special education. They were going through the process of reviewing our work, and I wanted to make sure that they knew of some things that I had been finding. I also thankful to the board for allowing this to occur. We also brought on a third party to do an audit of our special education department. And now this wasn't because I was looking to find fault. I just wanted to look. I was looking to find those opportunities for improvement. And so some of the things that we did, clearly we did bring on, and this was through our previous director of special education took a job at a different district, so it was an opportunity to bring somebody in new. And we were able to bring in Vanessa Schmidt, who had worked in the district previously, had gone to PACE, and now is coming back. So it was really drawn to her because of her intimate knowledge of the district, but then also understanding and work with our special ed cooperatives, right? And that's a harmony that we need, you don't often find. And so she has a solid understanding. The other thing was we did, and again, thankful to this Board of Education, they allowed us to add more positions for our special education oversight. So in the past we had 2 coordinators, we now have 4 coordinators, 2 at East and 2 at West, and then Vanessa is helping with PMSA. But that's where we could start looking, right? We need to start reviewing our IEPs. We need to make sure that the minutes that are on those IEPs are actually being delivered to our students. We need to make sure that parents are being updated on a quarterly basis on how their students are doing, not just in their grades, but on their individualized IEP. We need to make sure if a child with special education needs is failing a course, that we're having an opportunity not to fail that kid, but let's go back. Something is wrong with that IEP. That IEP is written in such a way that the child should be able to find success if these modifications or if these accommodations are met. And so if we're finding that that's not happening, well, we first should go back to the IEP and make those changes, because I'm operating out of the assumption that this child can and should and will be successful in that classroom. If we're finding that's not happening, that's a breakdown in the system, right? And that's some of the things that we need to do. We also, to the best of our ability, we operated in an understanding to ensure that our teachers were being provided the amount of time to do the work of teaching and caseload management. And so we made it a goal district-wide to do what's called a 4-1. So where teachers have 4 periods of instruction, 1 period of case management, and then their contractual planning and duty period and lunch. And so what this allowed us to do is maybe, we had to bring on more staff members to do this, but it was the right thing to do, right? You can't, just like we were overloading our students with classes, we were overloading our special education teachers with work. You can't teach 5 classes and then or 6 classes, whatever we were doing. It was just too much. And so I understand the contract language, and I chose that this 4-1 model, as often as we could push it, was the way to go. Listen, I just want to caution everybody. We will not fix every challenge we have in special education in a month or even a year. In my last district where I was a superintendent, we were on a corrective action plan by the state, and we were able to exit after 18 months. And the comment was that was one of the fastest exits that they had seen. And so I know that 18 months is fast. I know it's probably going to take us 2 to 3 years here to really build and rebuild a special education program that works for all students. I think this also means we have to take a look at how many students we're sending out for special education services outside of the district, because right now we're 4 times the average, right? So something is not clicking, and I haven't figured out what it is yet, but I know that I have the right people in Vanessa Schmidt and her team to really go out and support our special education teachers. We also allowed for there to be a department chair for special education teachers. So for the first time this year, and most people can't tell me how long, we have our special education teachers and our ML teachers, or multiple languages, they get to meet regularly. Right now it's just once a month, but that's more than they've ever gotten to meet. So on those Wednesdays where your kids get to come in late, we're working hard during that time. And once per month, our special education teachers are going to come together and try to, just coordinate all of their efforts. Now, that's not to say that they're not meeting any other time, because they will be meeting with their departments at least twice a week. But it's, the special education and not knowing what your question is around students with IEPs, I do want you to know that we are aware that there is a need for significant improvements in that department and in our department for our ML students. Like we will get better. I just ask that you give us some time. It's not going to happen right away. But if you are having problems, please email your principal, email your teacher. If you're not getting any responses, please email me. Corey, do we have another question?
Yes, we do. Mr. Robert Cox wants you to describe the latest students' attendance system. He wants to know, is it digitized? How is it articulated? And is there an intervention system that helps to change the chronic absenteeism?
So we haven't changed so we're still using PowerSchool for attendance. That's how teachers are taking attendance. What's changing is how we're responding to that data, right? In the past, I don't know what we're doing in the future is we're looking at those bag reports. We're building that student success team, and we have a constant cycle of looking at data, putting interventions in place, monitoring those interventions, and then coming back to see, are they successful, right? And so if we're talking specifically around attendance and we're looking at who are the students that are struggling the most, what interventions are we putting in place, and did they work? If they did work, well, then we're just going to continue those interventions. If it doesn't work, then we're going to have to try and find a different intervention. And sometimes that intervention means showing up on a kid's door and knocking on it and talking to the parent about the importance of a child being in school, right? We're also creating these, we're also doing something that I didn't talk about earlier, but every week we're doing weekly data calls with our principals, and attendance is going to be one of those. What we're looking at is week trend data, month-long data, and then year-long data, right? So we want to be able to understand, like as a school, where we are on our path to 95, right? We want 95% attendance. So we need to know where we are and what's working. As we get good at this, we should be able to project those weeks that our enrollment is going to be low. And we do have some data that we could rely on. I'm not sure how great the data that we put in was, but we're working on that. But when we get good at this, we'll be able to know, week 17, we really lose a lot of kids on week 17. Let's figure out a way to make school really fun that week. So maybe that's the week we do the come to school in your pajamas day, or, all those fun things that kids enjoy doing. Maybe we do it that week, because that's the week where we really need the help. I am.
Dana asks, have you determined what standard tests will be used for PMSA admissions? Previously, it was a PSAT, but last year there was not a consistent test used across the feeder schools for PMSA admissions.
Yeah, so we're still, thanks, Dana, thank you for that question. That's a conversation we're still having. I was actually just talking to a few of the foundational superintendents about that same thing over the weekend and last week. So it's something that we're looking at. I will say with PMSA, we are looking to speed up the process. So I don't have the dates in front of me, but essentially we want to start making decisions in early January. And so we'll get that information out. We do plan to have a bunch of future PMSA student nights. We'll have opportunities to go out to the schools and talk to students there to get them excited about their future in Proviso, whether it's PMSA, East or West. But as far as have we decided on that assessment, we have not. We're very deep in those conversations. We should have a decision soon, and once we do, we'll communicate that through the process.
We'll just answer a few more. We have Connie. She's asking, are we bringing back work study? Earn while they learn.
That again, Connie, thank you for that question. I know, and I spoke about this earlier. We have an area where we do have a lot of students that could possibly leave early. And so we're looking at the work study program. I'm also looking at early release policy options that I would bring to the Board of Education if we felt it was needed. And then as I'm looking at that work study, we're really looking close to the letter of the law to understand in code and statute what's possible with that, right? And so just to be aware, right, it wouldn't be for every child that just wants to leave early. It would have to be a program where kids are going to an employment, we have somebody that's visiting them there, and there are some other pieces that you have to put in place. Essentially, we need to make sure that as these kids are in this work-based learning program, they're getting something from it other than a paycheck, right? And so that is the work that we're trying to do. Right now, I believe we have one teacher certified, and so we're signing up other teachers so that we can increase the amount of we can increase the amount of educators that we have that certificate for work-based learning. So again, it's another area that we're looking into right now.
Ms. Gavella asks, what are the plans for ACT prep for our junior students?
So with ACT prep, again, thanks to the board, they approved, or will be soon. They just approved Cambridge Education Services. So that is the program we ran last year. We had an entire program. It was, I think we called it SAT Wednesday or ACT Wednesdays. And so we're looking to bring that program back. So we'll have the boot camp again for students, and then we'll have Cambridge Education that is going to be able to provide additional supports. But I just want to caution again about this, right? Test prep is not something I'm crazy about. What I am crazy about is rigorous instruction aligned to standards in every single classroom, every single day. Every day a child comes to school, we should be preparing them for success, not just on the ACT, but on any assessment that they take, right? And so while it's great that we're doing this, and I understand because it's a new test and kids aren't used to it, I cannot make up for lost content. I cannot make up through a test prep program a child just not understanding or not mastering a standard. And where that happens is then that tier 1 instructional program, and that's why we're bringing the gradual release in, because that's where I think the most impact we can have is. So again, I understand the need for test prep programs. I'm not a fan of them, but I also understand the need. But again, for me, the most important thing is ensuring that we have really high quality instruction every single day for every single child.
Cassie says peer tutoring periods would help with work study and office aids.
I don't disagree. We just have to figure out a way to make that happen. I know one of our principals is looking at an option. We'll see if he'll be able to flesh that out and could maybe pilot that. But, academic tutoring sessions, peer tutoring, I think those are great opportunities if we could figure out a way to make it work here in Proviso.
Connie thinks that Let's Talk would be a game changer, but we have Ms. Ebony Gordon, who is also asking about needing to show a lease every year. She says that some of us aren't able to get an updated lease.
Yep. So I think this is asking for the lease is just being able to prove residency. And so if you're having trouble with that, please reach out to your school's principal. If you're not getting an answer, please reach out to me. And when I say if you're not getting an answer, I mean almost immediately. If your child is being restricted from school because of some type of paperwork issue, please let us know. Like we will figure it out. The last thing I want is a child missing school because of something like this. So if you are having that issue, please email me and I'll make sure we get it to the right people and you'll get follow-up immediately on it.
We have 2 people who are interested in having more time to talk with counselors during school registration or prior to.
Okay, I think that's great. So again, if you have a specific counselor that you need to talk to or email and they're not getting back to you, just please let the principal know or myself and we'll follow up.
Sarisha Bell thinks that it's a good idea that you'd like to go out and connect with the community. And we have one last thing. Rashay Destiny says freshmen should have a little more time for first period to get to all classes. It's only the 3rd day and she's gotten lots of alerts already. Just a caring mom. We appreciate caring moms.
What's our Karen mom's name?
Our caring mom is Sarisha Bell.
Miss Bell.
Sorry, Miss Rashay Destiny. Sorry.
Rashay, I need more time in the morning too. I hear you on that. It's hard. But I will say, if you drop your child, if school starts at 7:55 and you drop your child off at 7:50, they're not going to make it to school on time. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we have some serious protocols before students can enter into our school, right? And that's to keep everybody safe. Not that I think our students are threats, but you just never know who is trying to sneak into our schools. So we have to make sure we're scanning our kids in. We have bag scanners. We have metal detectors, and that does take time. I know when I watched it, it was taking a good 15 seconds per student. We're trying to enter in 1,600 kids. And so my ask is that you have your children dropped off to school by 7:40, so it gives us the time to make sure we go through all of our safety protocols without watering them down in any way, and then get them to class and get them to their classroom on time. So hopefully we'll be able to get there. Hopefully we'll be able to get your sorry, we lost power. So hopefully you guys are still with me. I have one from Connie.
Yes. Connie asked, are freshmen assigned guides to help them navigate around the schools for a couple of weeks?
Yeah, there are people in the buildings, including myself, that are just kind of there constantly helping guide kids. It's hard. East has a kind of a funky way that they number the rooms. West, in C Hall, you don't know where B or D Hall is. So I'll tell you, more so than I've ever seen. I see teachers in the hallways. I got security guards that care, right? And they're trying their best to engage in a more appropriate, more fun manner with our students. And the deans are out in the halls, the assistant principals are out in the halls, the principals out in their halls. So we don't have specified people like info booths, but we have multiple people on every floor helping direct our kids. And I'll tell you, you could see that, you already know, you'll go up to the kid and be like, are you lost? Because you look lost. And then we help them get to where they need to go.
We've got some good feedback. Denise just said it was great to see PTHS out of community events this summer. Bonnie says are we getting more metal detectors or a better process to get in the building?
We are looking at a possibility of adding some bag scanners to just kind of speed it up. So we're looking at pricing right now. And then if we believe that's the best option, we would bring it to the board for approval. But we're early in those stages right now, excuse me. Any other questions?
No, it looks like we just have other good feedback. Just a moment, my computer's frozen.
Well, listen, I'll always take great feedback. But if you have questions, we're probably going to end this pretty soon unless we get some more questions in.
Or we'll just respond, because my computer's a little slow. We'll get back to everyone.
All right, so if there's a question that did not get answered, I will follow up with you directly. I appreciate you guys being here from Mondays with Mo Whip. I hope it doesn't always last this long, but listen, I will always have an opening that is not going to be 38 minutes, right? It might be 5 or 10, but I will stay on and answer all the questions because, again, like I said, I know that the process of educating children and from the parent perspective could be daunting and challenging at times. And if we have not been good partners, I apologize. But I know that we have people here that truly care about your children, that truly care about this community. And we just want to make sure that you're connecting and getting your answers as quickly and as easily as you possibly can. I thank all of you guys. Have a great evening. Stay dry. I am not looking forward to the drive home. But I hope everyone's basements stay dry. Have a good night, everyone.